Thank you all for coming to listen to us. My name is Jane Alcorn. I'm president of the Tesla Science Center at Wardenclyffe. The Tesla Science Center at Wardenclyffe does not exist yet. We are working to create it. About 17 years ago, I was part of a small science museum in our local high school out on eastern Long Island, and I see we have one of our t-shirts on this young man up front. And we were using 2 classrooms for the science museum. The high school's population was growing. They needed their rooms back. Our science museum was growing. We needed more space. And I used to live down the block from this mysterious building behind a chain link fence. And I had been told by one of my neighbors that that's where Nikola Tesla had worked. It was once his laboratory. I didn't know who Nikola Tesla was. And she kept telling me, you really have to find out about this man. He's fascinating. He was a scientist. He was an inventor. He made it possible for modern society to exist the way it does. And so as I sat on this board and we realized we needed more space, and I knew that this property that I had learned a little bit about was no longer being used for its previous purpose as a photochemical and emulsion manufacturing plant to make photographic papers, I thought, well, what better place for a science museum than in a scientist's former laboratory? So that was about 17 years ago. I stepped off the board of the Science Museum with a couple other people, and our purpose became the acquisition of Wardenclyffe, Tesla's last laboratory. And now it's 17 years later, and we still haven't acquired the property. And not for want of trying. We've had to wait for a long time because the property had been contaminated by the chemicals that were dumped on the grounds by the photochemical processing company. It was bought out by Agfa Corporation, which is the current owner. So the Science Museum moved on. It's in a nearby town, and they're thriving, doing very nicely. And those of us who stepped off the board added a few other members, created our own nonprofit charity, and are still in the process of trying to create this museum. But we finally reached this point where we had received the possibility of $850,000 from New York State as a reimbursement grant if we could raise that amount of money and spend it on the acquisition of the property. And that was mighty exciting because that meant if we could match that, we could get more money from the state, and we would be on our way to saving that property. Because I had learned in the meanwhile what a fascinating character Nikola Tesla really was, and all the wonderful things he had done. So how many people here used electricity today? How many people like robotics? How many people like remote control? Okay, well, we have Nikola Tesla to thank for all of those things, plus so much more. And that's really part of the inspiration for me of why we have to save this property. So there's this beautiful building, this brick building standing in Shoreham. It's designed by Stanford White. Stanford White was the preeminent architect of his time. The early 1900s, when Tesla was having this building built, he had it designed by his friend Stanford White. Stanford White designed the Washington Arch. He designed the original Madison Square Garden, many, many other famous buildings around New York City and in other places. So beautiful brick building, famous scientists, got to save this place. We got the $850,000 promise. But the zoning on the property, which had been zoned as residential, I don't think anybody wants to live on that piece of land, which is a Superfund site, was going to be changed. And that was a concern of ours. So we started thinking about what are we going to do? Our $850,000 is going to evaporate in another year's time. The zoning on the property is going to get changed, and it's going to make it more interesting to possible purchasers. And someone came to look at the property and was interested in buying it. And that was the scariest thing of all. What if it was sold out from under us? And all our waiting and all our planning and all the work we had done to get every elected official representing our area, from the Civic Association president and the PTA all the way up to our congressmen and our United States senators supporting this project, our state senator, our state assemblyman, our congressmen, our town officials. Everybody liked what we were proposing. We were going to lose it all if the zoning changed, if someone else bought it, and if we lost that money. So what do? We have a Facebook page. So any of you who go on Facebook, please visit our Facebook page and like us and check it out. And I put up a posting that we were in desperate need of somebody to help us. And if anyone knew famous people, someone who could be a spokesperson for us, if you knew of anyone with deep pockets, please send them our way. And I got some interesting responses. Call David Bowie, like he's going to take my call, and get in touch with Tesla Motors. They'll support you. We had tried and not been successful at that. And then a couple of people mentioned the oatmeal. Now, he's a wonderful guy. And for those of you who haven't looked into Matthew Inman and the oatmeal, I highly recommend that you do. He's an online comic. He's very funny, and he's also a thoroughly nice person. Anyway, someone suggested get in touch with the oatmeal. But before I had a chance, several people tweeted him, and he checked us out. And then he posted on Reddit a question. Should he help to support us in trying to save the Wardenclyffe property, the Tesla lab? And he got an enormously positive response to that. And he gave me a call. And we had a great conversation. He offered to help us, and he really did. So I have to tell you about timing. If we hadn't been pushed with those three things that I told you about to get this thing, to get the posting up on Facebook, and if Matthew hadn't had a couple of experiences that he had run an Indiegogo campaign a few months earlier in which he was able to raise $220,000, and it was called Bear Love Good, Cancer Bad, and that he donated half of the money to the American Cancer Society and the other half to the National Wildlife Federation, I think it was. And if he hadn't had that experience where he was able to raise that kind of money, and if he hadn't written a wonderful, serious blog or a serious post on his webpage, theoatmeal.com, about how Nikola Tesla is the greatest geek who ever lived, if he hadn't done those things, it wouldn't have been the right time. And if we hadn't had our problems, it wouldn't have been the right time. So we had the right cause and the right spark and the right platform, which was Indiegogo. And together, we launched this Indiegogo campaign. So on Wednesday night, August 15th, I sat down at my computer. Matthew called me and said, we're going live in a little while, in a few minutes. Watch and see what happens. Turned on the computer, went to the Indiegogo site, and it popped up, and it said, $25. I said to my husband, wow, we got a donation already. Come over here and look. And he turned and walked to me, and in those few seconds, we were in the thousands. It had happened that fast. Matthew had put out a post on his website and also on his Facebook page that we were starting this campaign, and his legions of followers and his many, many, many fans just leapt to it, and they started contributing. We had the most amazing night. I don't think I slept that whole night, really. I just kept hitting refresh, 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 refresh. All night, I'm watching this thing leap. I started watching at 6 o'clock. At 1:30, I said I was going to bed, and at that point, we were over $250,000. It was incredible. I woke up many times during the night with my iPad next to my pillow, and I kept hitting refresh in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep the whole night. By the next day, we were almost at $500,000. It was the most outrageous experience. So I want to show you a little bit of a quick video of Wardenclyffe, what it looks like now, and I hope that you'll all join us in the future. Continue to contribute if you haven't, and spread the word, and you'll see why it's so important. This beautiful place has been destroyed and needs to be brought back to its proper life. Oh, and stick around for the end. We have something special.
Let the future tell the truth. The present is theirs. The future is mine. You may live to see man-made horrors beyond your comprehension. Everywhere there is energy.
All right. My name is Slava Rubin. I'm founder, CEO of Indiegogo. Give you some facts here really quick. 1 second. Let's see if this works. Oh, I'm sure it will work soon enough. So we have like 14 minutes left here. How many of you are inspired to make something from your 2 days here and hearing about Nikola Tesla? All right. So we're going to do a little exercise here with 20 seconds of my 13 minutes left. So close your eyes, all right? And you're going to think of 3 things, okay? You're going to think, what do you want to make? How much money do you need? And in how many days? Okay, so fill that sentence. I need A, amount of money, in B, amount of days, to make C happen. All right, this will all be much more helpful. The next 12 minutes will be much more helpful if you have that in your mind. You guys know what you want? All right, so in the next 12 minutes, we'll talk about how to make it happen. Which is, at the end, we're going to disclose some really interesting data and facts about the campaign. All right, well, there's the ending, which it just ended last night at midnight. They were able to raise, lots of money. When you include the New York State reimbursement grant, you have over $2 million. So Indiegogo has been around since January 2008. We're the world's funding platform where anybody can raise money for absolutely, positively anything. There is absolutely zero judgment, zero application, zero acceptance process. Everybody is empowered to do anything they dream of. We like to think we have some of the greatest makers ever, actually, on Indiegogo, and you might chuckle at this one, which is, I think we have the greatest makers, which is the Haleys from Florida. The Haleys from Florida crowdfunded their baby. They were unable to afford in vitro fertilization, were unable to get pregnant. They got rejected by every single insurance company and were turned down by every hospital. They went on to Indiegogo, they raised the money they needed, and not only did they raise the money, they had the in vitro, they got pregnant, and the baby was just born 3 months ago. So if you add that along with all the 3D printers, the iPhone cases, the plays, the movies, the entrepreneurs, the cupcake companies in Brooklyn, the bookstores in the Bronx, the soda factories in Queens. Again, anybody in the next 10 minutes can start their campaign to get this going. So now let's just talk about some of the tricks and tips as to how to crush it with your campaign. There's only 3 things that matter. Number 1, have a good pitch. Number 2, be proactive. And number 3, find an audience that cares, which the Nikola Tesla campaign annihilated all this. So here we go. 1, have a good pitch. 2, be proactive. And 3, find an audience that cares. This is the same for every single campaign. And here's some of the data. So we have the most campaigns of any platform in the world. We've been around since the beginning of the industry, January 2008. All the things I talk about now have no opinions involved. This is all data. So have a good pitch. If you have a video as part of your campaign, you will raise 114% more money if you do not have a video as part of your campaign. The average campaign will hit its target on day 36 of a 47-day long campaign. 91% of campaigns will offer perks in return for funding. It is not required. 9% will still hit their targets with 0 perks in return. 85% of those campaigns will offer between 3 to 8 perks. I recommend a high, a medium, and a low. Always nice to have a lottery ticket level, which is like 1,000 or above, where no one ever thinks they're going to get funded at that level. But even the Tesla campaign had many funders at $1,000 and over, and we'll tell you what the highest number was soon for a single contribution. So all of these things, we're moving really fast. Hopefully this is informative. It's all on the blog at indiegogo.com/blog. We update new metrics every single week. We're constantly analyzing data. Number 2, be proactive, which is if you have 4 more people on your team, you'll raise 70% more money than if you have only 1 person on your team. If you do an update every 5 days or less, you'll raise 4 times more money than if you do an update every 20 days or more. Hands down, your number 1 tool is email. Your number 2 tool is Facebook. Your number 3 is Twitter. We track every single dollar that comes in from every single country in the world. It's all being tracked, so that's how we know that. We know if you get off to a fast start, if you hit 25% of your funding within your first week of launch, you are 5 times more likely to hit your target. So we can go into a lot more of this stuff. But in terms of an email, be very direct. Don't create a wishy-washy subject with 7 paragraphs of how passionate you are, 9 links in there, and then trying to say, check it out. Say, remember what we just closed our eyes about? That's what you want to put in the headline. I'm raising $71,000 in 19 days to make my 3D printer. Have your link to the campaign after 2 sentences of intro. Then get passionate. Have the same exact link, no other links. Last is find an audience that cares. On no platform in the world, in any country, and since the 700 platforms that have followed us since we started this, including the platforms that are funded on Indiegogo, because we're open to anything. So competitive platforms are funded on Indiegogo. Nowhere are there magical elves just waiting to fund your campaign, which is completely 0 funded and empty. So you always have to get the ball rolling with your inner circle. Now, the number that we see, and this is not exact science, is you need to get to somewhere between 20 to 40% of your funding through your own trust circle. Your trust circle are the people that are willing to take a risk on you and say, I don't think this is actually fraudulent. I think this is legit. Now, you want to get out to all the millions of viewers and all the strangers on Indiegogo, and the way you get there is very easy. It's actually in completely your control. See, no one at Indiegogo has opinions that matter. It's just like Google. It's all indexed. We created the GoGo factor, which is everybody has equal opportunity to get on the homepage, to be discovered, and the Tesla campaign, again, completely destroyed it. So their GoGo factor is off the charts. And it's like many different variables that you would think of in terms of tracking activity. Funder velocity, promotions, Facebook, Twitter, updates, yada, yada, yada. So everybody has an equal opportunity. Exactly. On average, an Indiegogo campaign will get 20% of its funding from total strangers. Some campaigns will never get $1 from a stranger. Some campaigns will get over 99% from total strangers. The way you go from 20 to 40% from your trust circle to 98% from strangers is that 20 to 40 keeps on getting smaller as part of the proportion. Yeah. All right. So I hope this was interesting. Hope this helps a little bit in terms of when you walk out, you're going to go kill it with a campaign. And now I want to just share some information from the actual Tesla campaign with our final few minutes here. If you see, there was, 14 updates. You see the final tally. And we're going to share this information with the media tomorrow. The campaign just ended at midnight. So you guys are the first ones to ever see this, which is pretty exciting. So here's all the actual data. You have 1.4 million raised with an $850,000 reimbursement grant. If you look at the 33,000 funders, right, it's just an interesting analog, which is you need 33,000 more credentialed math and science teachers in California in the next 10 years. So just to show you the perspective, 108 countries funded this campaign. Indiegogo is completely global. We work in every single country except for OFAC regulated countries, which is like Iran and Cuba and countries where I go to jail if we do stuff there. So we distribute money in virtually every country of the world. Check this out. This is the first 24 hours, minute by minute, of the Tesla campaign. Remember how she said they launched, they got $25, she went to bed. Look what was happening while she was in bed. I actually don't know when she was in bed. So, because she called me at like 1:30 in the morning and saying this is ridiculous. Yeah, so it's pretty exciting. This is the first 24 hours alone. First 24 hours, $100 a minute coming in. $600 an hour. Sorry, 6,000. You guys are keeping track. See, that was my little trick. This is my favorite one personally, but this is what countries funded this campaign. Yeah, so 100. And then in case you have any competition state by state, this is cool because this is the density heat map of funding velocity by state. So the light green is where there's less funding, smaller amounts of contributions. The medium, and the deep green is where people were throwing lots of cash at this campaign. I don't know what the takeaway here is. I'm sure people have lots of opinions. But it's interesting. We only have 2 minutes left here, and then we're actually going to have the greatest thing ever. Hopefully it'll work. Here's the highest mode of a contribution was $50. So that's what happened the most often. The average contribution was $41 for this campaign. The average contribution on Indiegogo across all campaigns is $70. And the largest single contribution for this campaign, like I said, is a big number, $35,000, one time, click. The amazing thing is there was lots of 33,000s. And then there was lots of 2,500s and 1,000s. The largest contribution ever on Indiegogo, sadly, was not on this campaign, which is $60,000 at one contribution.
Our filmmaking friends right there who did the video for us, they were one of the contributors of $33,333. And that was all their seed money for their film. So they need to do an Indiegogo campaign and to raise money for their film, an Indiegogo campaign. That's what it works.
So here's the breakdown by contributions. Pretty interesting. You'll see people are like, hey, I kind of want to fund in these lower levels. I remember when we were talking about the lottery ticket, right? The amount that you never think anybody's going to fund, put it out there, and it's much more likely to happen. Here's your contributions by dollar amounts. So that's it. I mean, the exciting thing is we've been around since January 2008. You can go visit the bookstores in the Bronx. You can go get, donuts from the place in Brooklyn. These things aren't funded for the sake of funding. That's not why we exist. We exist to be able to, in the words of this fair, to make things happen. And, we'd love everybody here. There's absolutely zero judgment. No one will tell you you're not good enough on Indiegogo. Everybody deserves the opportunity. And now to the ultimate thing, hopefully.